Fueled by the insatiable need to fight, orcs populate nearly every hospitable and inhospitable planet throughout the known universe. Where there's a fight, be sure that they will be there. Green-skinned, and according to Imperial research, possessing the biology of a strange mix of animal and fungi, they're usually muscular in physique to enable them to do what they love most, fighting and warring. They're quite possibly one of the most dangerous Xenos races in the galaxy due to their large numbers, growing exponentially wherever there is combat to be fought, and their spores, by which they grow from, being notoriously hard to get rid of. If orcs are found on the planet, it's almost impossible to remove their presence. Within the orcs lies a social hierarchy, and it's here in the centre where you find yourself as an ork boy. You're bigger and meaner than the weedy grot, that's for sure, but above you are knobs, an even bigger, more battle-hardened version of yourself, and war bosses, the tippy top of hierarchy. Alongside war bosses, with the kind of dotted line, lie mad docs, pain boys and weird boys. Ork boys can encompass other specialist types of warfare, like truck boys who ride vehicles into combat, tank busters who love explosions, freebooter pirates, mechanics, medics, storm boys, psychers and many more. Ork philosophy completely revolves around fighting, and typically don't believe in the concepts of destiny, and often take the side of one of two of their deities, Gork or Mork. Gork is brutal but cunning, and Mork is cunning but brutal. Ork currency is teeth, of which orcs regularly replace them like sharks. There are a couple orc factions within the Gilead system, one notably is the Blood Axes, whose leadership remains constantly contested and is open for grabs by just about anyone. Warboss Vazdrok's Spiky Smasher seen here is one such claimant of the title. When playing an orc, just like a few of the other races, you pick yourself backgrounds, objectives and a clan. You can choose to hail from a clan in the Gilead system like the Blood Axes, or you can pick an established one in the lore such as the Goths or the Snakebites, or you can make up your own. If you do choose to make up your own, add one of the clan's bonuses to your own character sheet so as not to be at a disadvantage. Other ideas for custom clan bonuses can be discussed with your group and could be a fun addition to the game. The Ork Boy is one of 3 current archetypes for the orc species and sits at tier 1. The orc has a base toughness and strength of 3 for the 26 XP cost, which is not bad, and the weapon skill of 2 also helps you brutalise your enemies at tier 1. Armed with a shooter, slugger and chopper, it's time to fight your way to the top. The archetype ability, Get Stuck In, offers you a collaborative plus rank bonus die for every ally engaged with the same target as you. So if you're a team of orcs, be sure to get up close and personal and rub shoulders with your teammates for that killing blow. Some useful talents that spring to mind are listed here. They mostly focus around the physical brute strength and toughness of the orc. And generally speaking, none of them would be particularly bad picks, and all of these talents can be applied to the commando and the knob archetypes as well, respectively. But it's important to consider what kind of personality and playstyle you're going for when choosing builds and talents. All of the ones you see here are talked about in more depth in the Ork Rock and Roleplay guide. Next, let's talk about the weapons, armour and equipment. The Ork Boy gets a shooter, a slugger, a chopper and some clothes. Your shooter and slugger are relatively standard weapons, the slugger being your pistol type and the shooter is more ranged. Consider upgrading to a big shooter eventually, and as for the chopper, it's a standard melee weapon which you'll definitely want to swap out for a chain chopper or a big chopper eventually. However, both of these melee weapons are rare, so good luck. All these weapons have the trait, something specifically for orcs. What this does is grant you a +1 bonus attack if you're an orc using it. It also gives you an extra 1 ED if you're suffering from the wounded condition. This is a great buff to your combat prowess and promotes the use of orc weaponry on orcs and keeps it very thematic. Onto armour. You're only granted torn clothes to begin with, so consider gearing up with some flak armour to have an AR of 2, and eventually, if your aim is to be a hulk of metal, leather and death, some heavy armour. There are also some orc specific bionics and equipment to pick from seen here. Not much, but I fully expect them to expand on this with the eventual orc supplement. I'm going to take a quick note to mention orc psychers. Orcs can certainly be psychers, though there are few and far between. I cover this in more detail in the orc species guide, but for now keep this in mind. Orc psychers are called weird boys, and are almost always shunned by society for being strange, aloof, and not particularly killy in the physical department. I'd like to start by saying that some of these models are great for knobs, boys and commandos alike, and I've excluded some of the more obvious knob and commando models in favour of keeping them in their own videos. However, feel free to check out those as well. The lines are pretty blurry when it comes to orcs and their size and looks, so most of the orc range of models make great player characters even at tier 1. You don't have to constrain yourself to the vanilla Ork Boy models if you don't want to. Consider some of the more unique models in the lists, check out some of the more specialist models linked to knobs and war bosses, and just have fun taking your pick and customising the look and feel of your character. Orcs, if anyone, have such a diverse range and in turn personality. I simply couldn't fit every orc model into this video or we'd be here for an hour, so let's look at some basic ideas and some inspirations. First off, we have a couple selections from the original Rogue Trader orcs. What is interesting is that the clans have already started to appear here as part of the lore and have their own unique quirks and personalities. Then we've got the classic 1997 Space Orc. I had a squad of these as some of my first ever miniatures and I loved them. Next are the 3rd edition boys. These models lasted orc players until the last couple of years and came with either shooters, sluggers and choppers. Seen here are some mech boys, an excellent choice if you fancy something a bit different and playing on the more ramshackle mechanical nature of the orc species. These minis are the original 1990 versions, followed by the 3rd edition ones. And the final one seen here is the 7th edition mech boy. If you do choose to be a psyker, though I would recommend it at a higher tier so that you have a few more XP points to play with, here are some excellent Weird Boy models to choose from. Seen here are the original 1990 models. Next is the current Weird Boy and Were Boy models. Or the more inquisitive of you might want to be the medic of the group as an aspiring Mad Doc. These Pain Boys come from the 1990 range, followed by the modern versions of the 3rd and 7th edition, which err on the more sort of knob size. There are other Pain Boy and Mad Doc models which look bigger and bulkier that I will reserve for the knob video later out in the series, but one of my favourite unique models can be seen here. This is the Bad Doc from the Gorka Morka set. Bad Doc is a great choice in Pain Boy models because he has a more basic loadout of the Ork Boy, but the aesthetic of the Pain Boy. Only downside, it's an extremely rare model, I've only seen it in person once. Next up, the more explosive of the orcs, the Tank Busters, seen here with squigs that carry ammo and explosives. Here are the Burner Boys that come with burners, def guns and big shooters and rocket launchers. This particular set, still in print, also comes with a big mech with a custom Mega Blaster. In 2021, a new set of updated boys similar to the ones all the way from 3rd edition got announced and released, with updated poses and weapon choices. These guys look characterful and a great homage to the 3rd edition set and complement them really nicely, I think. Beast Snaggers are a unique and brand new addition to the orc range. These guys are more ramshackle and nomadic in nature, choosing to ride giant squigs into battle as opposed to trucks. These guys would make some excellent feral orcs stranded on a desert or jungle planet. And finally, one of my favourites, a collector's edition model, Gorzag, Gitstomper and Nickit. Fairly recent additions, so still not too hard to come by any means. This model I was going to save for the knob video, but it would make a perfectly good Ork Boy because of his loadout, and he's accompanied by a little grot partner in crime, Nickit. You're an Ork Boy, not a weedy grot, not even a brute knob, but you've got strength and ferocity behind you. You're always up for a scrap and to prove yourself, and you never tolerate any of the more squishy races around. Infighting or teasing will be commonplace with your comrades, and sometimes simply the strongest will make the decisions. Although orcs are crude and have basic vices when compared to the Imperium, they aren't necessarily dumb or stupid. There are some excellent tacticians and minds out there in the Green Tide. Even if their rise to the top is a little bit unconventional, they're still respected. You will most likely always question an order with a challenge, unless of course the hierarchy for the day has been asserted and you simply don't have the energy to fight again. Being an orc is one of the funnest things you could roleplay, and it's great not having to take things too seriously, except combat of course. Trade in teeth, pick on the little guys, challenge the big guys and rise to the top. What are you waiting for? Get out there and get fighting. Just like the Eldari announcement of a supplement, I fully expect an Orc one to help bolster some of the options for Orc characters. This means that there will be a future rules video, and it may supersede this one, which I will cover at a later date.